Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about crushing the myth of paid and organic working together. Now, we know that a lot of you marketers on the call absolutely understand the value of both paid and organic and of them working together in a lot of ways and how there's synergies between them. But we wanted to talk about actually literally having them work together and selecting a platform or a partner or a way that brings synergies between the two in an actual physical form. And so Dan and I thought that we could chat about it, but we thought it would be even better if we added another voice to the conversation. So we're joined here by Eric. He's awesome, going to add so much interesting context and stories and anecdotes about how they're doing things over at Hand and Stone Massage. He is the director of digital and social media. I've had the pleasure of working alongside Eric in a partner relationship for almost 3 years now, and have always just found him so curious, so smart, so strategic. And I can't say enough awesome things about him as a partner and a leader for the team that he leads. So we're so excited to have him. He'll talk a little bit more about his background and what he does. I'll let him do all of that because he'll do it better than me. But for a brief introduction, so you know who you're listening to, that's Eric. I'm Julie Samuels. I am our VP of Customer Success at Eulerity. I have the pleasure of overseeing our business relationships and making sure that our partners are successful, feel confident, that they know how to use our platform to its maximum capabilities. I oversee our team that works directly with corporate teams as well as owners, if that's our support model. And I'm so happy to be here to talk to you guys. And I'll hand it over to Dan for a quick introduction, and then we'll kind of get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Julie. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Dan Eisen, Vice President of Sales over here at Eulerity. I'm in charge of all things revenue. I've been working with multi-location brands, franchise brands for, a decade now. Previously to Eulerity, I was at Sochi as a VP of Sales, working with franchise and multi-location brands. And before that, a company called Moment Feed that got acquired by Uberall. So looking forward to this discussion. I'll
Right.
kick it
I
over.
forgot, Dan. I was also supposed to give a little bit of my background. I just missed it because I was so excited to hand it over to you. I come from some of your shoes. Prior to Eulerity, I was working for a franchisor. I was working for Blink Fitness, born out of the Equinox Soul Cycle related companies. And I did franchise sales and recruitment marketing for Blink. So can understand what sometimes being on that franchisor side is like and the unique needs of a franchise business. And so one of the things that we're proud about at Eulerity is that it is uniquely built for the franchising space. We have other great clients, and we've created additional functionality for lots of other verticals. But we know that there are some nuances there that we directly support uniquely. So here's our agenda for today. Hopefully you guys can see my screen. If you want to pin this, that's where you'll kind of see the visuals. We're really going to talk about the power of paid and organic together. We're going to talk about some of the reasons why you should consider them as like one holistic strategy, both from a content and as a service provider perspective. Then we're gonna, let Eric kind of talk a little bit of his client success story. We'll all three kind of talk a little bit about why we think it's successful. We're gonna ask Eric some questions. We'll have a really robust conversation. We'll speak briefly about how Eulerity can help. If this sounds interesting to you and you're like, I want to move more towards this type of a strategy, we got you. And then at the end, we'll open it up to Q&A. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat box and we'll get to them. I'm not sure we'll take a full hour, but if we do, we do. So we'll get going. When you look at this, this might be an example of a lot of your brains. And honestly, it's probably even more organized and laid out if your brain is anything like mine, sometimes being a marketer, where there are so many different things that we have to think about and execute on. And maybe you have different teams that do this. Maybe you're a one-man shop and you got to do it all. But we know that digital marketing is continuing to evolve. There's new things every day, and there is so much to think about. And any synergies that you can find and things that you can bring together for simplification and consolidation should make life a little bit easier. So we're really going to zoom in today on that pairing of organic advertising and paid advertising. some of our clients on here that work with us when we do webinars for actual end users, for franchisees or owners, we talk a lot about the difference between the two. What is a post? What is an ad? I'm sure a lot of you can recognize where a lot of owners might not know that. We're going to skip all that today. Not going to bore you with explaining the difference, but we're going to get into kind of some of the powerful parts of bringing them together. So I'm going to hand it over to Dan and we'll chat a little bit about it.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. So yeah, there are so many things that you guys have to focus on, right? Organic and paid have so many synergies where they go together. One of the main things, one of the many benefits of having it in one solution is the consistency in the branding and messaging. So many organizations, they might have a paid team, they might have an organic team, some initiatives interlapping with each other. When you connect them in one system, you have synergy, you can see, performance, so on and so forth. You're really avoiding the mixed messages, conflicting, media buys, whatever it might be, but you're staying on brand. So that's number one. So we could
And
go to
also,
the
I think Eric will talk maybe a little bit more about it later in his section, but the ability to actually easily take a image that was used for a post or an ad and then turn it into the opposite. It's really great to make sure that you're having the same messaging and that you're leveraging the same creative, so that you're creating a brand that's cohesive and that you don't have a different organic personality than an advertising personality. And we might get into talking a little bit about UGC and different ways that brands want to come off as authentic. And some brands have more authentic ads, right? They don't necessarily want to put on the logo. They want it to almost look like it's a post so that, it's not like something that's sponsored. And then there are other brands that they really want to validate their professionalism or their ability to be a national player. So they actually go the other way and everything needs to be really well branded. But when you bring them together, you can make a intentional strategy around that instead of it being kind of happenstance.
yeah. And that teed me up. Thank you, Julie, for the streamlined strategy. If you think about the marketing funnel, right, guys, from awareness all the way to purchase, and I'll get into this later, but awareness, social organic posting on Facebook, Google, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, so on and so forth, all the way to purchase, which is the intent to buy, right? That whole customer journey, you want to make sure that the strategy is aligned, the messaging is tight, and it is aligned with the whole journey from, awareness all the way to purchase. So aligning the goals, optimizing performance, so on and so forth, is really what we're trying to hit home here. And then the improved data utilization, I'm going to get into this a little more after we get to, past Eric, but having the power of organic data and paid data separately is powerful. Having them together, to Julie's point, it's sky's the limit in terms of what you can do and how you can reach new customers, existing customers, and really, crushing your revenue goals.
So probably don't need to tell the folks on this call that obviously, cost and time efficiency is huge. Marketing in a lot of ways, actual ads are getting more expensive. We're all trying to figure out how to do more with less. So the cost of media partners and platforms and stuff is super important. So if you can think of ways to consolidate and leverage, one partner for multiple things, you might be able to get some more bang for your buck. But then there's also that time efficiency. And I know Eric's going to talk all about this because we talk about it all the time together. But efficiency is huge. Like time equals money, right? It's not, those aren't two separate things. And people and the idea of having two separate teams or two separate systems where you have to upload assets to both of them. You have to have management for both of them. You have to teach franchisees how to use both of them. Like we all know that stuff takes time and that costs money. And so when you bring them both together and you can think about a way to leverage one platform or one partner, it can be really, really powerful, even for your bottom line. And then lastly, just enhanced collaboration and communication. I kind of inched into it, and a lot of these things kind of go together, which is why we're kind of flying through them quickly so we can get to the good stuff, which is chatting with Eric. But when you can enhance that collaboration and ease that communication, it just makes it easier to make changes. It makes it easier to roll out new things. I think so much when you're working with members or franchisees or in that kind of a distributed model with multiple locations, anything you can do to streamline and communication is so big, because we also know probably owners don't read all their emails and they don't attend all the trainings. And so if you can have less of them, and you can really consolidate those, you're likely to get a little bit more share of attention from there. Okay, so hopefully that gives you guys a little bit of foundation of some of the reasons that we think it's an interesting thing to think about. But really, to bring the conversation to life, want to introduce Eric to the conversation. I'm going to hand it over to Eric. Eric, I will be your Vanna White, so I will try my best to anticipate your needs and go to the next slide by reading your mind. But would love it if you, Eric, could first just tell the group a little bit about yourself, your role, what you guys do, and then we can get into a little bit of how you're managing organic and paid, and how you've been able to really drive that program even stronger over time. So I'll hand it over to
I'd be happy to. Thanks,
you.
Julie. Thanks for the earlier introduction. Very much appreciate that. Again, my name is Eric Haberacker, and I'm the Director of Digital and Social Media. I started at Hand & Stone back in February of 2020. And I came on as the Director of Social Media in particular. Now, here's a little pop quiz for Julie, you and Dan. What happened March of 2020?
Gosh, I just don't know. You
Yeah.
stumped me.
What was that? COVID, right? So I'm brought into Hand & Stone to really help them stand up their social media program. Prior to that, it was we're using external resources, some internal resources, part-time, things like that. But as our system was growing and continues to grow, we needed to figure out, Hand & Stone wanted to figure out, how could we bring this in-house to really work on all of the things that Julie and Dan were talking about. That the value of social media continues to grow, especially in our industry. And when we have, at the time, 200 to 300 locations, all of them doing social media, a tiny little team trying to manage social media on their behalf. It really came down to myself, and I had a team of 3 other people. So there were 4 of us that were working on this. And everything that we focused on was, of course, offering value to franchisees. But the real way that we needed to think about that was through efficiencies. And Julie mentioned that a little bit ago. So as we were really defining the program and figuring out what it is that we wanted to do, one thing continued to bubble up to the top, and that was, how are we going to be more efficient with what we do? How are we going to be able to grow from 300 locations to 500 locations to 1,000 locations, and ultimately not really grow the footprint of the team? So we're a lean model, and the lean model works for us, but that allows us to really be close to everything that we are creating, everything that we are promoting, and everything that we really need to do for social media to make it an effective communication and advertising channel for our franchisees. Now, if you want to go onto the next slide, Julie, we'll talk about what we look like today. And we're actually we're really about 500 locations that are participating in our social media program. That's there, but go back up, because I want to talk about the stats of we're reaching tons of people through social media. We're publishing tons of organic content. We have millions and millions of digital ads displayed on a monthly basis through social media and YouTube. And it would be, in my opinion, impossible to do this volume of activity for 500 locations without having some sort of technology solution. So really, back in 2020 and 2021, we were growing as a program, and like any good leader, you want to look out for your team, and we were attempting to grow. I'm asking for resources, and the resource opportunity that I had was not a person, but technology. So we went out and we tried to find a partner, really. That's what we were looking for, that could help us scale our social media and allow us to grow into the future. And the real key to that whole exercise, and I would throw this out to all of you that are listening, document your must-haves, your nice-to-haves, and the things you can live without. That was really critical to what it is that we were doing. We had things that we could not bend on. We needed them for the purposes of how we ran our social media program. So we went out and looked at a whole bunch of different options that were out there. And of course, ultimately, we landed on Eulerity, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But the key point to all of this is we needed something to allow us to scale, and it had to allow us to do it with consistency, with accuracy, and with the resources that we had. So if you go to the next slide, Julie, this is what happened. So we brought on Eulerity, and we grew our program from 300 to 500 locations that were participating in the social media program at Hand and Stone. And what's interesting is along the way, we were actually able to carve off resources, not add resources to the program. So we're growing the program, yet we're shrinking the footprint, the number of FTEs responsible for what it is that we're doing. And we're still continuing to add value and make it new and interesting every single day. So our driving force behind finding the right technology partner was to become more efficient. And it doesn't get much more efficient than what you're seeing here. We do more with less, and we continue to do that every day. My title in the beginning was Director of Social Media. My current title is Director of Digital and Social Media, because the activities that we've done, the systems and processes that we've been putting in place have allowed me to grow my role and not have to continue to spend as many hours on social media activities, yet we're still effective and adding value to our owners today. So if you go to the next slide, what are we trying to do? It's an integrated social strategy. And the topic is, this myth busting or whatever we're calling it here, but I find it difficult to personally see why you would ever want to separate your organic and paid strategy. Maybe you have the resources to do so. Maybe your organization is structured that you might want to have different messages across those. But at the end of the day, our approach is a unified strategy. And we're trying to set something up that is repeatable, that is brand consistent, that is going to get the most value for the franchisees that are participating in our program. And not only are we doing local social media, we're also doing national. So we have a national strategy and we have a local strategy. And both of those are important because they have to be telling similar stories. You might be saying some things a little bit differently or at a different scale when you're going national. But when you go local, that then allows you to really connect your audience to the locations. And we're able to do that within the Eulerity platform with some of the features that they build out that we've requested or they've recommended, things like labels that are in essence macros, allowing you to identify price points and location identifiers, things like that. So those little pieces allow us to do both national and local at scale. And that's really where we're going to be going to. But the key to our entire program is a partnership. We're not looking to take social media away from our owners. Like I said, there are at this point 3 of us that are working, let's just say part-time, on social media activities. There is no way that 3 people can localize social media, meaning we encourage our franchisees, our owners, our locations to go out to local events, to collect stuff that's unique to them, to put it out there in the socials, to feature their service providers. All of that is critically important to connect with your audience. The 3-person team that I have can't do that. We're not sitting in a spa in Prosper, Texas, taking photos of the service providers and trying to put it out there on the various socials. So we're partnering, and we needed to find a solution that would allow us to have some oversight on what was going on with the social media activities of our locations, but also open enough that it made it convenient and easy for them to publish to social media channels. And again, that's really where Eulerity was coming into play for us. So if you go to the next slide, I think this might even be the last slide that I have. I don't even know. But our mission, social at scale. we are a small corporate team. We have localized budgets. So there's not one big pool of money. And Eulerity was able to accommodate something that may or may not necessarily be unique for Hand and Stone, but we're looking at 500 mini budgets that have to be spent in the proper radiuses or targets that we have identified for each of our locations. That's critical to us. And also the ability to load those quickly because they change regularly. We do some sophisticated things with our budgets and they may change by a few dollars here and there each month. That's time. And as Julie said, time is money. We don't want to be spending hours, even days worth of time updating budgets and updating the campaigns that we're doing just because it's a procedural thing. We need an efficient way to do that. We have this integrated paid and organic approach. And some of the things I think we're going to talk about are we're really moving towards a UGC strategy. And what we mean by that is we've done a fine job in creating advertisements that are really brand heavy. And they're talking about the various promotions that we have and the gift card seasons and things like that. But what people really want to consume is the service, like what's happening, what's gonna go on when I'm going into the treatment room. Show me what the results are if I'm going in to get a diamond glow service, for example, and how am I gonna look before and after? And you're not getting that from a really big production corporate ad. So what we're starting to do is create some of this stuff at the local level. And really what we're looking to do is aggregate that all together, find out through publishing that on various pages, notably our national page, seeing what kind of engagement we're getting out of that. And for the ones that are the most successful in driving views, we'll now start pushing that down to our locations so that they have the ability to use that. And now that's where we're starting to see that integrated strategy. We really want to have it so that it's universal. We're giving the right resources and assets to our franchisees so that while we can publish on their behalf, they have full rights and capabilities to publish on their own as well. And then that leads us into, well, you must be losing value if you're not spending as much time. And the reality is we're seeing comparable KPIs to native efforts that are happening within the Meta Business Manager, for example. So there are some things that you give up, and we won't deny that. But as it relates to adding value, that's how we present this out to our owners. How are we getting value out of social media? Are we offering up good value? Some owners will perform better than others, but are they still getting good value? And this program that we put in place offers up great value for those that are participating in it, and that's why it keeps growing. Granted, there's always a holdout group. There are some people we just can't convince that we can do social media better than them because that's how they feel. And it's true. They probably can if they dedicate enough time and resources, but at the end of the day, they're responsible for running a business. So lean on the people that are the experts that are giving you what you need, and that's what we're setting up for them. Now, analytics. Julie and I talk about this all the time. You need to be able to present your successes and your failures, but you just need to be able to track things. And there are plenty of tools within the Eulerity platform that are allowing us to do that. A more recent innovation is some customizable reporting, which we at Hand and Stone had been asking for years. And we got it. So we're feeling really good about that. And we'll talk about more of in the innovation section of what we partnered with to try and figure out. But from our owner standpoint, they care about reach, and they're able to publish across multiple platforms. We push content for them to the Meta platforms, which would be Instagram and Facebook, but we're giving them the opportunities to publish to Google, to publish to X, to publish to LinkedIn, all things that make it easy and convenient for them to do in one location instead of having to log into each and every one of them separately. That's the partnership. We're giving them good value for the money that they're investing in social media. And again, this platform allows us to do it. Now, innovation. I think this one is critically important. And innovation comes with partnering. And we've partnered very closely with the Eulerity team. Sales is fine. Dan, sorry, you're okay. I appreciate a good salesman, but when it really comes down to what matters to us here at Hand and Stone and me personally, it's the relationships that we have with the client service team and really the development team. And honestly, the willingness for them to listen to us. We try and take a broader view in the requests that we generally submit as enhancements. So if we're taking a view beyond just Hand and Stone, we feel that the adoption of those ideas is going to be much greater. So we're not trying to think about how can Hand and Stone do it better. We're trying to think about how can the industry do it better. And those are the things that we bring to the table. And what's interesting and amazing is that they listen. So I know there's a bunch of people, I have no idea how many people are out there and it doesn't matter, but they're willing to hear us out on any idea that we have. Sometimes they're already in the pipeline. Sometimes they're new ideas, but oftentimes they are delivered. And that's the real key to the whole thing, that we feel like we're getting what it is that we need out of the investment that we've made into this program, and we're continuing to grow it. And we consume ideas from our owners. We consume ideas from our corporate team. We take them to the Eulerity folks and they say, you know what, that's interesting. We might be able to do that. Or that's interesting. Have you thought about it differently? And this is what we're thinking about. And that helps us recenter what we're thinking about. So at the end of the day, we're using a platform like Eulerity because we know there's huge value in social media, and this allows us to do it in a way that is cost effective for not only the corporate office, but for the owners as well. And the results show that we're doing the right things through the program. So that's all I'm going to say. I know there's probably questions that are coming from Julie and Dan, but as you can tell, we're pleased. We love our integrated strategy, and we would never tell anybody to have a separated strategy just because it doesn't seem to make sense if you're trying to do social at scale, which is what's presented here.
Yeah, awesome, Eric. Thanks so much. Really great to hear a little bit about what you guys are doing over at Hand and Stone. And I feel like we could go back and forth kind of saying great things about our partnership all day. So we won't. But I will say one thing is that I totally recognize and I compliment you all the time on the thoughtfulness around feedback and how you have helped suggest and give feedback that we have been able to implement because it does make us better. And one of my favorite parts about working for Eulerity and what we're able to do with our partners, not just Eric, but others, is be nimble and deliver when things make sense. And Eric will be the first to say, I always make him stack rank his requests. So sky's not the limit. I go back and I say, okay, here's the 5 things, which one's the most important? But we have built our product off of conversations like that and feedback from owners. We're not narrow-minded and this is the way something should be. And we have a full team of engineers in New York City that are super talented and focusing on consistent ways to keep up with the evolution of the industry and the needs and whatnot. So it allows us to function as a partner versus just a platform in many cases. So it's great that, you know, you deeply feel that. I think something that might be interesting, Eric, for you to talk a little bit about, because I know there are some people on this call that are doing social media, specifically posting programs with their systems. And there's, you know, every system's kind of different with like, I want corporate to post them all for me because I don't want to have to do anything. Or I never want corporate to post on my page for me because I want to choose what goes. And I think there's always this like dance around what's the best for the system, because a huge part of adding value is the hands-off part that you let the owner say, you don't even have to worry about social media. Like you go think about your inventory and your hiring and your operations, but then they also are an owner and they want control and they want, you know, to curate what happens. So do you guys have a program that's opt-in, opt-out? Do you guys use the different labels on our platform to make some things that go out automatically and some things that are more opt-in? And how's kind of the Hand and Stone approach to how much do you do for them versus how much do you kind of serve it up to them, but they still have to go the last mile?
Yeah, it's a great point that you're making there, Julie. Because our system is relatively large in terms of the number of locations that we have and the number of participants in the program, we cover all of those things that you just described. Now, if there's a scenario where an owner wants us to do absolutely nothing, generally it might not be in our program, just because that's one of the value propositions that we add. We have a creative team that's developing a bunch of assets for them to use. We do some advertising only, I suppose, but it's really the features that are available within the system that allow us to accommodate all of these types of people. There are people in our program that have been in since the beginning of us using Eulerity that haven't logged in one time. And we tell them that they haven't logged in, but they choose not to log in because they know we're putting appropriate content out for what it is that they want. They're not looking to necessarily localize it. They're just happy with the general promotional type content that we're putting out there, or the happy sun block day or whatever made up days are out there. We put some content around, but what we're allowed to do, or what we do offer up, is some automatic content, meaning it will go to the pages without the owners having to do anything. And that's the baseline of what we're doing. It's general content. I wouldn't call it generic content, but it's general. It's available in all locations. But then we offer up optional content, and that's really where we don't require, or maybe for some cases in states they aren't allowed to offer particular services. We will, though, create that content and publish it as optional content, meaning it lives within their view, and they have the ability to go in and accept it if they want to. They don't need to do anything with that, but if they want a more robust offering on their social media pages, they would then go in there and approve any of that content. And that's what's interesting about it. We're setting the system up because that's how it's been built, that you put it out there, owners can see it, review it. If they like it, they can approve it. If they want to edit it to make it more of their own, they have the ability to go in there and do it in just a few clicks. And that's where we're talking about the convenience factor. If we're introducing things that are very difficult to use, then the owners just won't go in there and do it because they just have too many things to do. Now, granted, maybe they assign the responsibility out to somebody because they're really into it. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is get the right content out there so that they have the ability to get it out there in their network. And the reason we push content automatically is also so that there's brand consistency, and that's important to us. If you're allowing your locations to just go out there and create their own stuff, it will look different at every single location. So we do our best to put a library together of different assets that they can use for promotional purposes generally. And then it looks all the same. It has the right fonts, it has the right colors, it has the right offer, it has the right logo. All of that is important as it relates to keeping consistency within the marketplace, because that's exactly what we want to have. But once again, as I said earlier, we also want to give them the flexibility of promoting locally. And we want them to talk about their service providers. We want them to talk about the community events that they're going out to. So really just giving all of those features is the key. And some will use them all. I had somebody reaching out today that they needed some additional assistance with connecting additional social media pages, and we help them out with that. And some don't do that, but that's what's interesting. We can accommodate all of that, and it's all done in one location. And that means there's a bunch of controls that are put in place so that we feel as a corporate team that we have access to what's going on.
That's great. Shifting gears, Eric, from an analytics perspective, how are you leveraging, the organic analytics that you're getting and the paid analytics to make decisions for your franchise system?
Yeah, we'll talk about paid first of all. I think that's really critical because in any system, the owners care about, are they getting value? Like, what's my advertising doing for me? So the system allows us to look that information up very quickly, and the owners can do it themselves as well. I think that's an important component. They can self-serve. If they want to see how things are doing at any given time, they can see how many ads are served up, what the click-through rates are, what the costs per thousand are. They're all available. If they're doing lead gen, they can see the cost per lead. It's all there at their fingertips. We have monthly reporting that's available too, but oftentimes, and when an owner wants to know, they want to know. And we don't want to have to say, well, I can give you last month, or we can wait till next month. They can just jump in there and see what it is. What it also, the system allows us from an administration standpoint, or administer level or org level, is look at everything across the board. So now we can start putting together averages and understand where the chain is. Early on in my adventures here at Hand and Stone, everything was presented out. What's the average of the chain? And we present that, and I'm fine with that. I guess this might be a little pet peeve of mine, but the challenge I have with that is 50% of people are always going to be below the average. It's just math. So that's where we tried to change the narrative of, are you getting good value? So what we're able to do is extract that information out of the system at the org level and understand if they are in fact getting good value. And I'm not going to tell you what we deem as good value. That's something that we've determined internally. But what I can tell you is, if a location is not within the thresholds of what we believe are good value, we really start digging in. And that's how we're using the data to let them know that, listen, all right, your performance is okay, but we think we can do better. And then we start making adjustments, either to targeting or to the creatives or other things like that. So that's how we're using it. There's many different ways that we're using it. There's a whole insights tab of all different kinds of things, of a summary report that gives us all the information we need to, who's logging in, the things that we want to know, because that's important. If people aren't logging in, you want to reach out and ask them why. Why aren't you logging in? And they might say, we just don't want to. We're good with what you're doing. Or they might say, I forgot. There's so many different reasons why somebody might log in. So that's one way from a paid side. From an organic side, again, really leaning into the UGC, we will want to and are wanting to know which things are performing best. And that's what then we will want to distribute. So if we can see what potentially is performing at a local level that some owner put out there on their own, we're going to take that and we're going to try and publish it universally across the system so that others can use it to their benefit. And that's the value of having it all consolidated. Julie was mentioning it earlier. We can pull the assets and we can push them into a library, and others then can leverage them, or we can push it out as either an automatic post or an optional post. But the analytics tell us if things are working. If there's no clicks on something, if there's no engagement, it's not working. And we know that very quickly. And then we can pivot where necessary. So the data is critically important. Prior to using a platform like Eulerity, we were manually creating reports on a monthly basis for upwards of 300 locations. If you want to talk about a time-consuming exercise, that is it. And when the majority of those may not have even ever been looked at, that's a waste of time. So now on demand is there, but we also have, again, self-service, and then we have that monthly reporting capability as well.
I think something interesting that you talked about earlier, Eric, was one of your non-negotiables when you were looking for a partner was being able to still have your advertising campaigns run at that local level. And that, there's potentially folks on the call that are doing things local and or national. But I think it's interesting. I don't really have a direct question, but kind of a thought starter of just that difference there, because you're mentioning about like the highest performing content, right? And how you can take learnings, which we think is super valuable. If we can see that the top ad is of the woman in the towel with the cucumbers on her eyes across all the location, then maybe that tells us we should do some more versions of that ad and push them out. But one of the coolest things about still having the campaigns be at the local level is that if for whatever reason in one location, if that doesn't resonate, they're like, we don't like cucumbers here, this is not working for us, then the campaign optimizes that ad doesn't get as much budget. So I love that kind of like fail safe, that you can still make overarching changes that leverage overarching analytics, but the campaigns are still locally optimized because they're set up local. And you can add in local ads that are only relevant for that individual franchisee or location or territory. So I think it really gives you the flexibility of having both scenarios of pushing out to the masses based on the top line analytics, but then still allowing them to function locally, optimize locally, and change the strategy locally if needed.
Yeah, all of that is absolutely true, and we lean on all of that as well. You know, we're pushing out, and the major things that we're pushing from our business are introductory offers. We want to get new people in the door so that you can experience the amazing services that Hand and Stone has to offer. And then we're a membership model. So once you've experienced that service, then we're going to work on trying to convert you into a member because of the long-term value and health effects of massage and facial services. So we push that kind of advertising out nationally, but they are being pushed to every single one of the pages. And that's a critical differentiator, meaning each location has their own budget, which ensures that they are getting impressions in their market. Whereas if you are just blanketing the entire nation with advertising and you put $100,000 budget behind it, you'll get impressions across the country. But the most densely populated areas are going to get the most impressions. And these are budgets that are being paid for at the local level. And you can't justify somebody in Alabama paying for advertising that's happening in New York City. So this allows us to show and represent that their money at the local level is being spent in the defined area to the people that will most likely come into their spas. And you mentioned it, we also have the ability then to localize the advertising too. So yeah, we might be featuring massage and facial services, but they might say, I just want to focus on facial service intros. We can do that at the local level now.
Right.
And you don't have to, and you could push it to 30 locations that want to do that, all in one place instead of having to set up and manually manipulate those ads in, let's say, the native applications for Meta. So it adds value across the board, and that's what you're looking at there.
And we do have a lot of clients that kind of do a little bit of both. Like they have local campaigns and then they use brand fund dollars or something to have some sort of national strategy that's like on top of something, which we also have clients who have then taken that national ad fund and then created local corporately funded campaigns out of that too, almost taking the money that you give to corporate and giving it back to your individual location. So we've kind of seen it sliced in all different ways. What I'd love to do if it works for you guys, I'd love to let Dan kind of speak a little bit about how Eulerity kind of addresses some of this, and then we'll spend the rest of our time with Q&A from the group. If you haven't already and you have some burning questions for Eric or myself or Dan, please drop them in the chat. And while you're pondering on all your questions, we'll talk just a little bit about how we address this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Julie. And I'll go quick so we can leave 10 minutes for questions. But we were an entrepreneur top marketing supplier this year, which we're proud of. But we work with a lot of multi-location brands, minus Uber Eats and MasterCard, really franchise specifically. But we're vertical agnostic, right? So we work with health and wellness, fitness, QSR, retail services. All multi-location franchise brands have similar issues. So we help solve for that. Next slide. So the 4 products, I know we talked about the digital advertising, social management. We do have call tracking and recording as well. So when you're serving an ad, having that call tracking phone number to track the revenue, the booked appointment. But on the second end of that is really from a training perspective for your employees, right? Making sure that your employees are treating your customers or prospective customers properly. And then reputation management is just gaining comprehensive insights, from Google and Facebook and being able to respond to those reviews in platform. No one's calling a hotline anymore. Everyone's leaving reviews online. You can go to the next slide. So the crux of it is be everywhere your customer is. From a paid perspective, I know we talked a lot about social, paid, and organic. Google search, top websites and remarketing, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn. From the organic side, it's Facebook, Instagram, X, Google Business Profile, and LinkedIn. You might think, why Google Business Profile? That's not really a social network. It's a search network where 90% of people are, searching. It's important to get ahead of that and leverage the Google post to show your services, what you offer, menu items, whatever industry you're in. And then the secondary to that, from an organic SEO perspective, you want to make sure you're popping up in that Google 3-pack. Posting a Google Business Profile is very important.
Also, Dan, it's like more and more Google is doing these like wizardry, amazing things to keep people on Google, right?
Yeah.
Like they are doing things where now they have the AI, so you can search something and you don't even have to go to the website to get the question anymore. It's right there. And it's the same thing with like Google Business Pages and Maps. Like the more you can put in your Google profile, the better, because a lot of people aren't even leaving Google anymore, which is just a phenomenon. I know there was news the other day about Google and lots of things going on there, but for now, it is a place that you definitely want to focus some attention of building up your reviews and your posts so you look like a thriving professional business if someone finds their way to your Google business profile.
Absolutely. So one of our secret sauce, to Eulerity, I mean, Eric mentioned it, efficiency, cutting down employee rate. It's the automation, the AI optimization. So on the left, creative testing, optimizing what ad is performing best. We'll, shift the budget there. And then from an intelligent spending optimization, if you are running an omni-channel campaign with us on search, display, social, and video, whichever ad and channel is performing best, the budget will automatically shift to that channel. So I talked about the digital funnel, and I'll kind of go through this. You could go all three. So from awareness all the way to purchase, from the upper funnel, right? We talked organic, Facebook, Instagram, even awareness from a prospecting perspective, awareness campaigns on the social channels, middle funnel, retargeting on the Facebook, Instagram, display, and then lower funnel conversions, intent to buy, to Julie's point and Eric's point earlier, Google search. But what we're seeing now more is meta lead cards on Facebook and Instagram as well. So Eulerity really covers that whole funnel. So how we're going to benefit you, I'm speeding through this so we can get to the questions. Really your franchisees and your local users is one, the ultimate adoption. You have two different platforms for organic and organic and paid. It's hard enough to get a franchisee or a local user to log into one. One content library, powerful reporting and analytics, and then a simplified workflow. And on the right-hand side, you'll see our mobile app. I believe that's Hand and Stone Creative. Eric was talking about, you can post automatically to your locations or give them an optional post where they can have optional ads or optional organic posts to opt into at any time. So they have corporately pre-approved assets to have go live on the networks. Alrighty, so one library, dual use, pretty self-explanatory, but from a organic and paid side, right? You have two tools, you're updating assets monthly, weekly, quarterly in two different places, consolidated in one. Simple workflow as well. Franchisee can do an organic post. The ad, running an ad is the same way. An ad takes about 60 seconds to do. Organic post takes about 30. But as they're starting to do that more and more, having it both in one area helps with the adoption. And then the last two slides before we go to Q&A, Google reporting. So on the left, paid keyword search performance, understanding what keywords are performing best when you put dollars behind it. So for example, with the Hand and Stone, say it's anti-aging facials is the one popping up most, right? Leveraging those keywords and that strategy in your organic strategy. We should be posting once a week. If we're putting money behind it and it's working, why aren't we talking about anti-aging posts more on your organic networks? And then another cool thing that's coming into the platform by end of the summer is organic search queries. Google Business Profile, has search queries of the top keywords that people are searching for you organically. If those top 10 are there that you see and they're not in your search campaigns for Google, might as well throw them in. And Eulerity makes it very easy to do that. You can go to the next slide. The last thing I'll touch on, and then I'll kick it over for Q&A, is top paid ads report. I think both Eric and Julie mentioned this, but if your ad is performing well, as 20% conversion rate, 30% conversion rate, again, might as well throw it in on your monthly calendar for organic to go out to your customers that are already following you, right? And ads finding new customers, and vice versa, right? And an organic post that's getting the most reach, the most engagement, the most likes, reshares, etc., might as well convert that into an ad. And Eulerity makes it very easy to do that. And the last thing I'll mention in terms of, social networks from an Instagram and Facebook perspective, Instagram specifically, you can see demographics, age, and gender. So if you're a primary audience that's following your local Instagram page, as female, maybe you want to put more dollars on the paid side for your social ads to females or 18 to 34, whatever it is, or vice versa. Hey, we want to, get more males to, come through the door, or we want a different age demographic. You have all those analytics at your fingertips in Eulerity and more. But yeah, that's as quick as I could go, Julie, before we go to Q&A.
You did a great job, Dan. We do have a few questions in here and, keep them coming. The first one's an interesting one. I'd love to hear your answer, Eric. Does Hand and Stone require franchisees to opt into Eulerity, or do they need to like sell them on it? And if it's the latter, which I think it is, what do you focus on primarily to sell them?
Yeah, they're opting into it. The HSM is our internal agency, so we're an internal agency. The social media program, as part of being in that social media program, Eulerity is the tool that we are using for that. So it's absolutely a part of the conversation of what's the value proposition of being in the social media program. You have this tool that gives you the ability to fully manage your social media outlets in one convenient location, and you can use it as much as you want or as little. And we are, of course, featuring the app as well, saying, oh, no, by the way, you don't need to be on your computer to do any of this. Just download the app when you're out at your local events, take some shots, publish them right when you're there, and it goes across all of your network. So definitely part of the value proposition of being a part of the Hand and Stone social media program.
Amazing. I love so many of these questions coming in, by the way. They're really interesting. This one's good. Do you ever find that reporting causes more questions, opening up cans of worms that don't need to be opened? Oh, I'd love to hear how you answer this, Eric.
Well, of course, because what's happening is that in the world of business, there are other companies that are soliciting our owners all the time, and they will present out whatever it is that their value proposition is from a cost per whatever standpoint. You fill in the blank of what that you're trying to tell what the cost is, or your return on ad spend, or anything like that. So oftentimes the owner is powered with that little piece of information, and then they're coming to us and saying, well, this company is saying that they can do this differently, and I need to compare that to the results that you are presenting out to us. So that's one angle that I would say happens, and we have to talk through that in terms of, again, how we are presenting the value proposition associated with the social media program that we have, and how we are generating value for you, the owner. And then there's just general questions that people have when they get any type of measurement about any advertising, and they want to dig in and they want to understand it, and we appreciate that. So we want to have those conversations. The more awareness that our owners have around the data that we're providing, the better, because you might have to have an early conversation with them to really get their understanding. But once they have that, they're able to self-serve a little bit more and understand when they're getting the information what it really means. So I think that the questions happen early, but once you have the informed conversations with them, those kind of tail off. So that's how we generally approach it.
Yeah, for the folks on the phone, we have different support models. So in our model with Eric, they do all the direct conversations with the owners. They use our tool as like an in-house tool, and we don't speak directly to the Hand and Stone owners. But with a lot of other clients, we are the first line of defense. So we also know firsthand kind of some of those reporting and analytics types questions. And it's a lot to, like you just said, Eric, just that education. And I like to always say, just like making sure they know to ask when they're concerned or ask when they have a question, because there's typically a reason or a story, or maybe something really like is wrong and it needs even more oversight or digging in. But a great example is, somebody's looking at their app and they see their impressions are declining, right? Oh my God, my impressions are declining. And we get an email from someone, my impressions are tanking, therefore my campaign is no longer working. And we want to get on a call with them, or we want to talk to them because we want to show them, wow, look, your budget distribution actually moved from display to search. And search ads are more expensive. And so for every one search ad, you could have gotten 100 display ads. So yes, you're going to get less ads, but let's look at your click-through rate and let's look at your clicks, and those are up. And let's look at your conversions. Those are up. And that's an ideal scenario, right? But that is a real scenario that happens. People see impressions go down and they think their performance is down. And as Eric said pretty early on, not most franchisees are not marketing experts, though some are. But so I always like to, coach my team and encourage our customer success team to really put themselves out there that say, please come talk to us. Like if you see something, say something. That's always kind of what we say, because there is an educational moment, and marketing is not black and white. It's not just, sometimes it's seasonality or there's something like that. A couple other questions. I know we're running out of time, and also just want to thank everyone for your time here. How do you address competition from with franchisees that are maybe using a different vendor, and maybe they're targeting and encroaching on a franchisee that you're advertising from? We hear this all the time. I'm seeing advertisements for a location in California and I'm in Nevada, and we go on and that location in California isn't under our ownership, isn't on our platform. So we're like, yeah, they're not, we can't adjust that. How is that something that you guys have dealt with? There's a question about that.
Yeah, so that's just part of our franchise agreements and your marketable territory. So it happens, and quite frankly, it happens more out of an error than it does out of something that somebody is trying to be a little sneaky with their approach. I won't. I mean, it's happened with our brand, but I've seen, because I search all kinds of things related to spas. I'm in Pennsylvania, and I get served up ads from spas in Utah, for example, and they're wasting their advertising dollars because they probably didn't know that they can localize their advertising. So our approach when that happens is a conversation about, by the way, did you know that whatever you're doing or whoever you're working with is doing, they're advertising in areas that are not going to generate business for you, and you're likely wasting your money. Now, if they come back and say we're doing that on purpose, then we have different conversations that are outside of marketing. And
Right.
We don't need to go into detail there, but that's generally how we approach that.
And there are rules in franchising.
Correct.
But it is nice to have like the ownership when you have as a large group of your system in one place on one platform. You do have that visibility.
Correct.
There are some more questions, but I see we are right at time. So I think we'll end there, guys. I know everyone on this call is super busy, including Eric. We appreciate you spending some time with us today, guys. Hopefully you learned a little something or other about the power of paid and organic together, and enjoyed hearing some specific examples from how Eric's doing it over at Hand and Stone. But thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Eric.
Eric.
Have a good one.
Thank you.